rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونستنصره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتدي ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا، لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأشهد أن نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. يقول جل جلاله في محكم التنزيل: فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى، وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى. This week and next week I will try and conclude the first part of this series of talking about understanding Islam, and then we'll have two khutbahs in a row that will be Ramadan preparation, inshallah, before the holy month of Ramadan, and then we'll continue the series throughout Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the time in the lifetime. But as I explain these things, it's hard to ignore what's happening around us in the world. It really is. And I don't think we've ever been in a position or a time where we've had such ridiculous leadership for this planet that we're living on, where someone who is the leader of the largest empire that exists on the planet says things that absolutely that make no sense at all, that have lack of respect to the existence of other human beings. And when we watch it and we observe all of this, it just shows you that we have somehow figured out a way to top ourselves historically with bad leadership. And it's not that we've not had bad leadership within the world historically, going back to as far as we can go back in documented history. But this has to be probably the worst of it all. Mostly because we've never had so many people on the boat. The planet has never had so many people on it. This boat has never had so many people on it. Sinking it right now is an absolute catastrophe. The number of people that will suffer is unparalleled historically. So having a flaming garbage can running the free world is not something that I can wrap my head around. And for countries that have some form of democratic process, not to be able to vote in people with basic human decency. I don't want an education, and I don't care if they have proficiency or fluency in any aspect of or any field of knowledge, but just basic human decency is what I'm looking for. Tells you that there is something that is flawed in the essence of this process that we have set up for ourselves. And as Muslims, this cannot be something that exists in our periphery. It cannot be an aspect of existence or life that we don't take interest in or we see as foreign or distance from our needs and from our attention span. We have to care about this much more than we have historically. At least within the last 100 or 200 years, Muslims have allowed themselves for the last couple of centuries to distance themselves from any aspect of political involvement or engagement, mostly or mainly because we're coming from countries that don't allow you to think politics. You can't even dream it at night without waking up in fear and horror. So we tend not to do it, but we can't, especially Muslims living in the West, where we do have the ability to have a voice and we have the ability to influence and to have impact. And I don't know what else to say about this topic than that. The reason that I'm talking about understanding Islam, which seems simplistic and it seems almost redundant, is because what ends up happening to all of us when we get engaged into a thought process, an ideology, a theology, or a group, that with time you end up caring about the nitty-gritty, the details, the complexities, the controversial aspects. It's normal when you're living within, when you're thinking about something for a very long time, you start caring about the little details. And there was a time in our history where we had the luxury of doing that. We, as Muslims, as individuals and as communities or as an ummah, we had the luxury and the leisure to talk about these furu', about these details, about these complexities, about these controversial topics. When we argued them ferociously amongst each other, and we took pride in the thought process that led to that, and the intellectual output that came from all of these arguments and these discussions. But today we don't have the luxury as individuals or as an ummah to talk about these things and to get caught up in details that most people don't even understand when the ummah is failing as it is. When as an ummah we don't have unity and we don't have centralization of our politics or of our finances or of our spiritual leadership or of our social, we're lacking basic centralization as an ummah. I'm not talking just as a London community. And when you lack all of that, then you have to go back, you have to regress. It's not regression really, you just have to go back to the fundamentals, to the basics. What is Islam in its most pure form? The beauty of Islam is that in its most simple form, it's functional, it's highly functional, in its most simple of forms. And we just have to go back to that. We just have to go back to what Islam was designed to be, simplistically, at the basic level. We don't need to make anything complicated. And if we do that, then we can find that which the generation of the Sahaba who learned from the Prophet ﷺ found. We can find that again in our lives, which is why I'm talking about this. Because I think we all have to zoom out a little bit and see the bigger picture. You have to zoom out and see the bigger picture for what it means to be Muslim in this world today, and where your responsibility actually lies, and what you have to spend time caring about, thinking about, and working towards. So if, hypothetically, over the last couple of weeks you decided to entertain my thoughts and said, well, he's yelling loud enough, he must have a point, so I'll try it out. And you understand that Islam is 3 dimensions or 3 buckets or 3 pillars to it. There's the behaviors and the rituals and the practices, which is what we call Islam. There's the perspectives and the understandings and the theology and the belief system, which is what we call Iman. And then there's the quality assurance and the working on the intentions and making sure that you do things appropriately, which is called Ihsan. And you accept that in order for these 3 dimensions or 3 pillars to actually function appropriately, you need to secure the formula with a background of accepting mortality and accepting accountability. And if you do all that, and then you find yourself walking you find yourself on a journey, walking a path, you figure out what the premise of that path is. You understand what the premise of the journey is, and you understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you a servant and a steward, and He has asked you to live a life of selflessness now in order for you to enjoy selfishness fil akhirah, and that will lead to a community that competes in doing better and doing good for other people rather than just for themselves. If you do all that and you start walking down this path and you're using these functional pillars in your life, what will happen is the question. What are the outcomes? And I'm not here today to talk about the obvious outcome, the outcome that you don't need me to talk to you about, the akhirah, which is making it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's na'im, to be in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's dar al-rahmah fil jannah. You know that's going to be the case. This is the whole point of this to begin with. But I'm actually here to talk to you about the outcomes in this life, because some of us need that extra motivation. Because some of us ask that question, well, what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking me for? Is He saying, here's a way of life, here's a system, live it so that you're miserable in this life and you fail in every way, but you make it Yawm al-Qiyamah to Jannah. You see, if that was the premise of if that was what He was asking for, subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would make the choice a little bit more difficult. I agree with you. It would be a little bit more difficult to make the choice. You would still have to choose that which lasts forever. You would still choose akhirah for sure. If you had any logic in you, you would still choose akhirah. If the choice was either you enjoy life here, you have fun, you have a great time, it's a smooth sailing, but then akhirah it's absolutely horrible, or you choose a life that is full of failure and difficulties and you're miserable and you have no success, and but Yawm al-Qiyamah you make it to Jannah, it would be a difficult choice. It would be a hard choice, like, well, and one, still logically you would choose for number one, but He didn't make that the choice, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could have, He didn't make it that choice. He made the choice as in, if you live the way He explains for you to live, if you accept His legacy and the legacy of His Habib alayhi salatu wasalam, then you live a life that is well in dunya and well in akhirah. And if you refuse it, you're miserable in dunya and you're miserable in akhirah, so that it's a no-brainer, so that the choice is a no-brainer. You don't have to waste any time wondering about it. Maybe no, there's not. If you do this, then you will find what you want here and there, which is what I'm here to talk to you about. The outcomes in akhirah are undisputed. They're indisputable. There's no point. You know the difference between Jannah and Jahannam. You don't need me to tell you that piece. But I'm here to tell you the outcomes in dunya on a personal level, individual level, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and on a communal level, on the level of an ummah, what the outcomes in dunya are, if you are to accept all of this. If you understand that you have to have a maslak and a madhab and a mashrab, if you understand that you have to learn your theology so you have a certain comprehension of God, you have perspectives that function, and that you have a madhab that teaches you how to worship Him in a way that pleases Him, and you have a mashrab to understand how to take care of what's happening on the inside so the quality of what you do is reasonable enough Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you understand that and you're willing to actually keep accountability and mortality in front of you, and you understand that this journey, that there's a premise to it, you understand what that premise is, and you're willing to engage into this interaction or into this transaction, then what you get on the other side are 5 things for you as an individual and 3 things for an ummah as a community. And I'll start with the individualistic piece so that we can hopefully get through them or into khutbahs. Number 1, the first thing that you get is you get something called fulfillment. The human race continues to search for this. They use different words for it, happiness and joy and pleasure and all this other stuff. It's fulfillment that they're looking for. You can be happy. You can be sitting with a bunch of comedians and they can make you laugh until you're blue in the face. But then they walk away and they leave you alone. Are you still happy? Are you still experiencing a level of calmness on the inside? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel valuable? Do you feel that your life has meaning to it? Do you feel that you have itmi'nan, alladhina amanu wa tatma'innu qulubuhum? Do you have that? This is what Islam offers you. This is the number 1 thing it offers you. It offers you fulfillment. Otherwise, what exists on the inside is this black hole. It exists in the cosmos, and it devours everything. It devours galaxies and universes on its own. And inside of you, the same thing exists. And there's nothing you put into it. There's nothing to throw into it that will satisfy it. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. The more you feed it, the hungrier it will become. And you will not find fulfillment at the bottom of a bottle, or in the form of a pill, or in the form of a physique. You won't find it that way. Even though they will tell you that that's how you're going to find fulfillment. If you're young, you can afford to ignore me because you're on the highway of life. You're just distracting yourself with things. You can afford to do it. You can afford to distract yourself with, well, I have exams and I have friends and I have a social life. So you distract yourself, but I guarantee you it will slow down and you'll be left with whatever on the inside. And if you're not fulfilled, if you don't have fulfillment, you will be miserable. And you will be middle-aged with the family and with the job and with degrees and with money. And you're asking yourself, why am I so sad? Why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? What's wrong with me? I have a beautiful spouse and I have great children and I have family and I have a job that pays well and I've achieved academically for myself and people respect me. And it doesn't work that way. You think you know more than God. Do we think we know more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Fulfillment is something that exists on the inside. Fulfillment is something that no one can take away from you. You understand how freeing that is? Do you comprehend how freeing the concept of having fulfillment is? There's nothing, no one can touch that. They can take away your wealth and take away your health, and they can throw away your country, and they can decrease your status and mistreat you, and it doesn't touch you because you're fulfilled on the inside, because the source of your fulfillment is something they have no influence over. They cannot control, they can't change, they don't hold it. There's nothing to leverage on you because you're fulfilled. There's no leverage because what you want is what you already have it. You have it from a source that is sacred, that is holy, that no one on earth has control over. And you live well. You live well. You see, it's not worth living life where I'm going to be miserable for the next 2 years until I achieve this milestone. And then after I achieve that milestone and I have it, I find it was a nice moment, the moment I had it, and I took a few pictures. But then I went back to the same thing, so I made another thing to look forward. And why are you living miserable in between? Why are you anxious and oppressed and depressed in between? Why? Why are you unhappy? No, you don't know how much time you have. Why not every day be a day where you feel fulfilled? Yes, you're working towards goals. And yes, you will enjoy when you achieve them. But you're fulfilled. And you feel that your life has meaning to you. This only comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only thing that fulfills that black hole, that hungry aspect is Allah subhanahu. You have to put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it. Everything else it'll just devour it, but His name subhanahu wa ta'ala will. That fulfillment, the aspect of us just being, it's very, very liberating. It's a beautiful thing. Once you have it in life, it's liberating because no one has leverage on you. No one can control you. They hold your job on you. Take it. Money, live it, doesn't matter. I don't care. You have nothing on me. What I have, you don't have, and you don't control. You can't take it away. You never did. You never had control over it to begin with. Today I'm just going to describe for you Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to describe for you Rasulullah, because he was fulfilled. That's why they had no leverage. They leveraged his uncle, his family, his home, nothing. They couldn't get to him. Why? Because what he had was on. كان صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أطيب الناس عيشا. That's how he was described. He lived أطيب الناس عيشا. He just lived satisfaction. He was very satisfied. He was happy. Ibn Qayyim says, المؤمن أطيب الناس عيشا وأنعمهم بالا وأشرحهم صدرا وأسرهم قلبا يجدون الجنة العاجلة قبل الجنة الآجلة. The mu'min in dunya is the one who lives well. His heart is at ease, his chest is open, his mind is open, he is happy, he is calm. He finds the Jannah in life before he is granted it Yawm al-Qiyamah. You're offered fulfillment first. And if you don't have fulfillment, then we have a problem. We have to talk. Okay, what's missing? Why don't we have fulfillment? Number two, you get synchrony or harmony or direction, however you want to describe it. You have a sense of synchrony. You feel at one with the world around you. You see yourself as a part of a larger family. The human race is a big family that you care for. That you care for their salvation. You care for them doing well. You feel at one with the earth that you walk upon. You feel that everything that is alive is something that you care for, that you're interested in, that you feel responsible for. The Prophet ﷺ, when you look at his life, he spoke to everything. He spoke to the trees, he spoke to the grass, he spoke to the rocks, he spoke to the moon. When Ramadan is coming, he was standing, he would say, Hilalu rushdin wa khair, you're a hilal of goodness, you're a hilal of guidance. Rabbi wa rabbuka Allah, you're my Lord and your Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is he doing? He's speaking to a moon. He speaks to them because he feels at one with everything around him. It grants him this feel of synchrony, of harmony, a oneness with creation around you. We're all a part of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beautiful creation, so you don't feel like you stand out. Islam does not make you feel more and more alienated or marginalized. It makes you feel more at one with everything around you. This piece is important. Wallahi, it's important, and it gives you direction. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are. I can blindfold you, spin you around a couple hundred times, and catapult you any part in the world. You will stand there for a moment, get yourself oriented, figure out where Mecca is, and then stand in prayer. It's literal and it's figurative because you have direction. You know where you're going. You know why you're here. You know who you are. You're not confused about it. No one can question it for you. So you have that direction. If the Kaaba was to be, we still would pray towards it because you know where it's supposed to be. And we know whose home that is or whose house that is. And we know who it is we're serving, so we have no confusion on it. That sense of direction is very, very important. That synchrony with the world. You go perform tawaf, and you circumambulate counterclockwise around the center, like everything else from the atom to the universe to the galaxies, everything is rotating counterclockwise around the center, and you do it as well. That synchrony is what you're offered. And that feeling of oneness and harmony with everything around you is very beautiful. It beautifies everything. Everything becomes beautiful. The world that you live in, the sky that you look at, the grass that you walk upon, every living thing. The Prophet ﷺ, he would speak to animals. He would come up to them and speak to them. It's a feeling of oneness. Number 3, integrity of ethics and values. I'm using the word integrity because I don't know how to translate istiqamah appropriately. The word istiqamah is incorruptibility, if that is even a word. I don't know if it's a word. But that's what istiqamah is. You're granted this istiqamah, this incorruptibility of your ethics and your values. And that shows in your behaviors. Your ethics and values are what generate every reaction and proaction. Everything you do in life is based on what values you carry. If you have clear, powerful, strong, well-defined principles and ethics and values, then you will always make the right choice. It offers you integrity. You are someone who lives life where you don't cheat, you don't lie, and you don't mistreat, and you don't backstab. It's important, wallahi, it's important for your self-respect. Maybe when you're young right now, you don't care about it. But I'm telling you, when you're my age, if you don't have integrity of your ethics and values, you will not be able to continue with life. Because you can't look at the mirror and look at the persons there and respect them. Yes, you have wealth, and yes, you got ahead, and yes, you have status. But if you don't have the integrity of your ethics and values, then you know the truth. People may clap for you, may give you a thumbs up, think you're great, vote for you, come in to ask you and think, but if you can't respect yourself, there's no point. Wallahi, it's not worth living. Wallahi, it's not. You have to be able to respect yourself and know that you made good choices and that you had that integrity of your ethics and your values and your choices and behaviors in life. You need it. Wallahi, you need it. You need it. When you grow up, if you don't have it, it makes it hard to live. If you're sitting on a bunch of wealth and you know that you cheated your way through to this. When you're staring at degrees on the wall, you know that you cheated. When you have status and you know that you're lying to everyone, it's not true. It's not true who you're putting this mask is not who you are. It's hard. You can't live. You lose respect for yourself. It's impossible to live that way. Islam makes sure that you have integrity of those ethics and values so you can respect yourself. So your actions and your behaviors will always be measured appropriately and balanced in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده. I'm going to conclude like the points in English, then I'll translate them in Arabic inshallah in a moment. Number 4, integrity of thought. Integrity of thought, of knowledge. This is something that we need today. We need today on a global scale. The ability to think straight. The ability for there to not to be biases and bigotry and ignorance and racism, to remove all of that. For us, how do you solve problems if you don't have integrity of thought? If you don't know if the thought process is not sound, if we don't know where to gain knowledge from, if we don't know how to understand the world that we are living in, the experiences that we are going through on a daily basis, if we don't know how to explain all of that, then things won't work. Today, more than ever, we need that because the problems that we are facing are monumental. They are catastrophic at best. We are looking at a future that is very grim for the human race if we don't start coming up with proper solutions. As an ummah that was told Iqra as the first thing it ever heard from the sky, the first communication that came to it from the Lord himself was Iqra. We have to have the integrity of knowledge, the integrity of thought. The fikr has to change, ya akhi. The way we think has to change. What we prioritize has to change. What we value has to change. We have to get all that right so that we're thinking straight, so that we can solve our problems. There's never going to be an end to problems. Things are never going to be perfect. There's always going to be a challenge, challenges that are difficult. If we don't have the tools to fix them, then how are we going to get along? How are we going to move forward? If we don't have that, then you get integrity of thought, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches how to learn. It helps the brain. It lines things up appropriately. You get integrity of thought. And number 5, and finally, you get integrity of relationships. You get istiqamah in your relationships, starting with the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets fixed, which is the most important relationship of all. It gives you integrity so you know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and you know how to speak to Him. You understand what relationship actually exists, who you are to Him and who He is to you, how to speak to Him, how to comprehend that which He gives you every day, and the messages that He is sending to you on a momentary basis. That relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most beautiful thing that exists in the world. It's actually distracting. It's so beautiful. It's one of the things where you can get distracted by it, where I have to come and say, wake you up. Nope, get back on the ground. Get back and do the work. Pick up the shovel and start digging. Go get into the mud and help people. But I don't want to. Why? Because someone is enjoying their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Sahaba were like that. They had to be reminded. Get up, get out. No, out of the masjid, go. Leave it. You can do this at night. Do this qiyam later. Go. The world needs to be taken care of. They didn't want to. They didn't want to because the relationship was so beautiful. It grants you that integrity within something. You can achieve this. Ya akhi, you can achieve this. This is not impossible. Wallahi, it's not. Wallahi, it's not ludicrous. It's not something that we talk about that's from a far time in the past or a far time into the future, and the people who don't, you can. You just have to get everything right. You just need the recipe. You need the recipe. You need the proper amount of Islam, the proper amount of Iman, proper amount of Ihsan. You need a proper pan. You need that understanding of mortality and akhirah. And then you need the premise. You need to get the oven just the right. You need to get the recipe. You put the ingredients in, you'll get the cake. But ya akhi, if you don't know what to put into this, if you don't have the right recipe, don't have the right ingredients, don't know the measurements, don't know how to do it, you're going to cook garbage. And then there's nothing to eat. Where are you going to get all this from? If you accept this from me, let's say hypothetically you accept this from me, how are you going to get this all right? Huh? From YouTube, from Google. You're going to put in Google. That's how you're going to learn your deen. Google is going to teach you how to cook this. You too, some person who's running after, who wants to be followed, is going to teach you how to. The idea of wanting to be watched already means that you don't understand the recipe to begin with. Someone who wants to fix the world and his backyard is filthy doesn't understand the basics of the recipe to know what the ingredients are to begin with. Who are you learning this from? Where are you actually applying yourself? How are you figuring out how much Islam, Iman, Ihsan you need to have? How to mix them together? Who is doing this for you? Do you understand how insane it sounds for someone to see all of this and just decide, I can do it. AI will teach. Really? Let's see how that's going to work. Let's see. Unless you are learning from someone who learned 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 from Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, then you're going to get lost. Because even then it's hard. Because even by doing it that way, it's not easy. But the basics, you just focus on the basics. What are my rituals? Am I doing them right? What is my belief system? Do I care about my iman and ihsan? Do I care about how I do things? Am I always reminding myself that mortality is near and accountability is going to come? Am I walking this path with my eye at the prize at the end, trying to behave appropriately? You need some help so that the recipe can be put together and the ingredients is mixed nicely, and then you have a nice outcome. The outcome is absolutely marvelous. It's marvelous. You're fulfilled. You have direction, synchrony, and harmony. The integrity in your ethics, in your values, in your relationships, in your thought process. You live well. Ya akhi, ya ukhti, you live well. That's more important than living with wealth. The goal is not to live with wealth, it's to live well. Living well has nothing to do with how much money you have, as long as you have just enough not to starve. As long as you have enough to just have a roof above your head and food in your belly, then living well has nothing to do with it. We know that. We know that after 60K per year, happiness plateaus for people. Wealth doesn't do it anymore. We know that. These are not religious studies. They're just sociological studies people have looked at. It's not status. It's not power. It's not control. It's something else. It's what this recipe gives you. You believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, then pick up this recipe and start cooking. Start working on it, and you will reap the fruits of it. You will enjoy it. إخواني وأخواتي أختصر لكم بسرعة لأنني أطلت. فإذا قبلت مني خلال الأسابيع الماضية ما تحدثت عنه من الإسلام مبني على 3 دعائم: الإيمان والإسلام والإحسان، فتطبيقات وشعائر وسلوكيات تسمى الإسلام، واعتقادات ومفاهيم وقيم تسمى الإيمان، واهتمام بالنفس والذات ونظر في التزكية وفي إصلاح الحال ويسمى الإحسان. وإذا علمت أن هذه ال3 لا تؤدي عملها ولا تحقق مطلوبها وغايتها إلا بفهم الآخرة وقبول الموت وقبول الحساب بعد الموت، ثم علمت أنك إذا حملت هذه ال4 ومشيت بها على طريق، فأن هذا الطريق وأن هذا السعي له مسلمات، وأن هذه الرحلة لها أساس، أن الله سبحانه وتعالى قد اشترى منك وباع، وأنك تريد الآخرة فتعطيه الدنيا، تريد لنفسك الآخرة فتعطي نفسك في الدنيا لغيرك وتضحي بها من أجله سبحانه وتعالى. فإذا علمت هذه كلها ما الذي يكون لك؟ وهنا لا أتحدث عن نعيم الجنة، وكفى بها من نتيجة جميلة حسنة طاغية على غيرها في الجمال وفي الكينونة، لكن هل هناك نتائج في الدنيا تراها؟ أي والله يا أخواني، والله نتائج الدنيا تراها قبل الآخرة، وأن الإنسان في الدنيا لا يعلم أنه في الآخرة إلى الجنة قبل وصوله إليها. الإنسان في الدنيا يعلم أنه سيذهب إليها قبل أن يصل، لأن الله سبحانه وتعالى يبشره ببشارات في قلبه، ويريه في سلوكه وفي حياته وفي اهتماماته وفي إخلاصه ما يطمئن حاله أنه إن شاء الله إليها واصل. ولا كيف نفهم تضحيات هذا الشعب؟ ولا كيف نفهم واحد يخرج من بيته وقد ماتت زوجته ومات أولاده وانقطع رجله ودمر بيته وما زال يكبر الله ويسبحه وهو يسير من شمال غزة إلى جنوبها؟ كيف؟ إلا أناسا قد علموا في أنفسهم ووجدوا في ذواتهم ما أغناهم عن هذه الدنيا التي نعيش فيها، مع إصرارهم على الوقوف مع الحق فيها. هذا يا أخواني هو الذي تم نبحث عنه. جده الآن في الرخاء، عساك إن شاء الله تجده في الشدة عند الحاجة. فأول ما يصل أول نتيجة يعطيك الله سبحانه وتعالى أنك تجد هذا الاطمئنان، هذا الامتلاء الصدري، هذا الاطمئنان، هذه الراحة، هذه السعة التي في الصدر، هذا الانشراح، طيب العيش. هذا ما يجده إلا من امتلأ قلبه بربه سبحانه وتعالى، وهذا يغنيك عن الدنيا وما فيها، ويغنيك عن المال، ويغنيك عن الجاه، ويغنيك عن الترحال، ويغنيك عن والله لا يوجد إلا عند الله. ما في صيدلية ولا في محل تشتريه منه إلا عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. السوبر ماركت تبع رب العالمين، تروح لعنده يعطيك هذه ما في مكان ثاني، ما في. كان صلى الله عليه وسلم أطيب الناس عيشا. ليه؟ رغم أنه ما في واحد بيحبه إلا ومات عليه الصلاة والسلام، ولا في بلاء إلا وابتلي به، بالمرض وبالتهجير وبالفقر وبالقلة وبالحروب وما تجده إلا باسما ضاحكا مستبشرا منعما في حياته عليه الصلاة والسلام، نعيما لا يدركه الناظر إليه ويعيه من وصله شيء منه في قلبه. ثم القبلة، الذي عنده قبلة، عنده توجه واضح، هو منسجم متناغم مع الكون من حوله، جزء من هذه الأرض، جزء من هذه السماء، جزء من الكوكب، جزء من البشرية، يشعر أنه جزء من كون الله سبحانه وتعالى، من مخلوقات ربه، لا يتجزأ عنهم، لا يبغضهم، يحب الخير لهم، يسعى من أجلهم، يعرف وجهته، يتوجه إلى الكعبة أينما وضعته على ظهر هذه الأرض. استقامة الأخلاق والقيم مما يؤدي إلى استقامة السلوك، استقامة الفكر مما يؤدي إلى حسن التعامل مع المشكلات والمصاعب والمتاعب والفتن. ثم استقامة العلاقات مما يربط العبد بربه سبحانه وتعالى، فيعرف الله ويعرف رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، ويعرف الأنبياء والصالحين والأولياء والشهداء، ويعرف أهله ويعرف والديه ويعرف الناس، فيحسن التعامل معهم، فيحسن التعامل مع أصدقائه ومع أعدائه. هذا لعمري والله لفوز بديع، والله ما في الميزان شيء هو أجل وأعظم من هذا. يصلك في الدنيا استبشارا بشارة لك على ما ينتظرك يوم القيامة عند ربك سبحانه وتعالى. فإذا فقدت هذه الأمور اعلم أنك لم تخلط، اعلم أنك لم تقم بالخلطة المناسبة. من أين تطلب هذه الأمور؟ من أين تأتي بها؟ من الذي يوصلك إليها؟ هل أنت مهتم بهذا؟ هل هذه من أولوياتك؟ Brothers and sisters, I end this khutbah with this ask of reflection for you. How high on your priority list is what I talked about today? How much time are you investing in this? How much care do you have for it? You think it's just going to be handed to you. You think it just happens. It doesn't. As much as I wish it did, it doesn't. You have to work towards it. It's achievable, it's obtainable, and by God, it's beautiful when you do. But it requires the discipline and the work towards it. And that's what the Sahaba did. How do you explain them? How do you explain their lives, radiallahu anhum? How do you explain someone standing there in salah, reciting a surah, and then an Arabian arrow entering his shoulder, penetrating the bone, and he just stands there continuing as if nothing happened, only for his dropping blood to wake up his friend to go and take care of the enemy and come back and ask him, are you insane? What's wrong with your brain? For him to say, Wallahi لَكُنْتْ كُنْتُ فِي سُورَةٍ كَانَ زَوَالُ الدُّنْيَا عِنْدِي أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ تَرْكِهَا. And we were reciting a surah, I preferred to die than caught. This is not philosophical. This is emotional. This is emotional. This is someone who found something that you and I have yet to find, but we will, inshallah ta'ala, with the grace of Allah. I hope that was a benefit to you. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَنَا بِأَمْرٍ عَظِيمٍ فَقَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي. وارض اللهم عن أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر الميامين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. اللهم فرج هموم المهمومين ونفس كروب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين وارفع الظلم عن المظلومين واحقن دماءنا ودماء المسلمين. اللهم احقن دماء إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان، احقن دماءهم في فلسطين وفي السودان وفي لبنان وفي غيرها من بلاد الأرض يا رب العالمين. اللهم رد المسجد الأقصى إلى رحاب المسلمين، أخرج الصهاينة منه أذلة صاغرين، أبقه عزيزا معززا إلى يوم الدين، لا تمكن لهم فيه يا رب العالمين. ارزقنا أجمعين فيه صلاة قبل الممات يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ردنا إليك ردا جميلا وتب علينا من جميع ذنوبنا توبة نصوحا طهرنا بها قلبا وجسدا وروحا وما ذلك عليك اللهم بعزيز ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء